sometimes those thoughts amplified and they got worse. But with time and just learning to be with them, the power they had, they vaporized and kind of disappeared. But just sort of learning to just be with and witness. Our nervous system it's like a computer. I mean, it's like bunch of these switches and communication of information.
Welcome to the Be Better broadcast. Today, we are speaking with Dr. Michael Amster. And for those who don't know Dr. Michael, he is a physician and an awe researcher, a writer, and a teacher at the UC Berkeley Greater Good Science Center. With 2 decades as a pain management specialist, Dr. Mike is currently the founding director of the pain management department at the Santa Cruz Community Health. He's a practitioner of meditation for over 3 decades. He is also a certified yoga and meditation teacher, and he splits his time between clinical work, researching this concept of awe, teaching mindfulness, and leading awe-inspiring retreats around the world. He's also training other physicians to help them to be greater doctors, better doctors, to help more people. This is a very busy man, and he wrote a book on top of all of it. The book is titled The Power of Awe, and we have the opportunity to speak with Dr. Mike today about what this concept of awe is, how can we practice it in our life, and what are the benefits that we can expect from such a thing. So if you enjoy this conversation at all, if you take even just one thing away, all that we ask is please share this show with just one other person who could use it as well. You are the reason the Be Better broadcast has grown to nearly 370 episodes, because you share the show and you are the best part of the Be Better team. So without further ado, the man himself, all the way from Santa Cruz, California, Dr. Mike. It's great to have you here, sir. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you so much, Brandon. I'm just thrilled to be here and just so excited to get to meet your community of listeners. Thank you for this awe-inspiring hour we get to spend together today.
Absolutely. We're going to have a fun time. So people have heard the concept of they see something beautiful and they say, wow, I'm in awe of that thing. Right. So we're familiar, at least most of us, I'm sure, are familiar with this 3-letter word, AWE, awe. Why is this important to you? Like, how did this word become such a focal point in your life? Was it before you were a doctor? Was it when you were discovering meditation and the benefits? Like, where did this come from for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in reflecting back, I think I've always been a seeker of awe. I'm someone who's always been enjoying the outdoors, and when I would see a beautiful like sunset or being out in nature, and I even sometimes do something small, like looking at a pattern on a leaf, I would just sometimes pause and be like, wow, that is just so beautiful, and in awe of the grandeur of nature, and also its simplicity that brings us so much joy and sense of peace. But the work that we've been studying came out of a desire. My co-author, Jake Eagle, he's a psychotherapist, an NLP teacher of many years. And as a medical doctor, I've been leading mindfulness programs for people with chronic pain for decades. And we both had a conversation about 5 years ago, really curious about noticing how our patients or our clients, when we would teach them a meditation technique, and it might take them 10 minutes to do, they would go home and they would struggle to find the time to do it. And often they would beat themselves up because they try to sit and their mind was racing and busy. And then they'd be like, I just give up on this. And they'd feel defeated. So we were really curious about coming up with this, a brief mindfulness technique that you could get the benefits, if not better benefits, than sitting for 10, 20 minutes a day, but you could have it in literally 15 seconds.
Wow.
And that's where we started going down the pathway of exploring the emotion of awe as that kind of conduit, that gateway to experience that profound moment of peace and mindful experiences that could be very healing, and resetting people's nervous systems.
Resetting people's nervous systems using this technique that we're going to talk about.
Exactly. So we actually use the word awe, AWE, and we created it into an acronym. So the A stands for attention. And what we want people to do is to bring their full attention to something that they value, appreciate, and find amazing. So what we're doing is we're training you in this technique to find a moment of awe in the ordinary. And that's what's really unique about my research. Jake and our research, different from other awe researchers, is that they were studying extraordinary awe, the awe that you would experience where you went to the edge of the Grand Canyon and you're looking out at that vast view. But there's a big problem here, is that those types of experiences are limited. They're not sustainable. You can't have an experience of going to the Grand Canyon on a daily basis. You can't go to the most amazing U2 concert at the Sphere in Las Vegas and just be so blown away by that experience on a daily basis. So how do you experience sustainable daily awe? And that's what our research came up with, this technique, so you can bring awe into the everyday. So again, I'll go back to the sort of the 3 steps. And if you'd like, I can even lead your listeners through an experience of the awe method if they want to.
Please, that'd be amazing.
Great. Okay. So I would just give one little caveat, which is sometimes when people experience this for the first time, they actually have a really profound moment of awe. And you want to be careful, because I know for myself, I listen to most of my podcasts when I'm driving my car.
Yes.
So just be mindful.
Thanks for the warning.
With doing this while driving, you don't be under the influence. And you can go to our website, thepowerball.com, and we have free downloadable guide for the awe method. We have guided meditation experiences on awe, and a whole bunch of practices that take you to a deeper experience of awe as well. So that's at the Power of Awe. But I'll go ahead and talk people through this very simple 3-step experience. So again, A stands for attention. So what we're asking you to do in this moment is just to bring your attention to something that you value, appreciate, and find amazing. So look in the space you're in right now. So if you're out there driving, you could look at up in the sky. Maybe you'll see clouds going by, birds flying by. You can even be in awe of a stoplight. I mean, imagine how important a stoplight is for our world to function on a productive daily basis. Like, we need these things. And that can actually be a moment of awe. I'm here talking to you. I've got this beautiful ceramic mug, and I'm just in awe of the colors and the shapes and the person who made it. So then that's the A. We're bringing our full attention to that one thing. And this is really a gift if you think about it, right? Because we're so busy in this modern age where we have our devices always, making noises and taking our attention away. And so we're bringing our full attention to just this one thing. The W stands for wait. And what we want to do is just be with that. Let it marinate and just fully fill us up. Let us be that experience of that full attention for just a matter of 5-10 seconds. And then the E stands for 2 things, and this is very important. The E, first of all, is a long exhale out. And I know many of us have heard of what's called the vagus nerve. It's part of the master computer of our autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight, freeze, versus like the calm, parasympathetic response of rest and relaxation. So we take a nice long exhale out, and we can even do that together right now, like make a sound of a nice long ah. And just notice how you feel. Like, instantaneously, you feel more relaxed and calm taking that long exhale out. Right, Brandon?
True. That's very true.
Yeah. I mean, even my voice just slowed down. I'm just feeling more present, with you in this conversation. And so when we take that nice long exhale out, because the vagus nerve attaches to the bottom of our diaphragm, it instantaneously resets our nervous system, brings us more into the present moment. And then the E also stands for expansion. If you think about a moment of awe that you've had in the past, you probably feel like you are bigger, that you become part of this like bigger vastness of life on this planet. You become immersed into that experience of a beautiful, profound sunset, or the vista looking out at a national park. So we want to actually cultivate that experience of expansion. So if you're a visual person, you almost could see like an energy filling you up, or like that experience getting bigger within yourself and filling you up. And that's the very simple, 3-step technique that literally takes, once you learn it, about 15 seconds to do. Cool. And we've been studying this now with, we've completed 2 very large studies that have been published in some great, journals, and seen profound benefits of how it's changed people's lives. So I'd love to share at some point in our conversation about some of those benefits as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that process again is awe. It's an acronym, and it's attention. So find something in your vicinity that you can bring your attention to, something that you appreciate, something that you can be grateful for, even if you don't normally look at this thing and think to yourself, wow, this thing is so amazing, right? We're not going through our daily life just saying, wow, thank God for the stoplight. Thank God for this. Usually we're looking at the stoplight and we're like, I hope this thing turns green soon, right? It's a totally different perspective. But A is for attention. So find something that you can be appreciative for. And really, you can kind of be appreciative for everything if you think about it like that, right? And then the W is wait. So let it marinate, be with it, right?
Mhm.
So be with that sensation of awe for this simple thing or a great thing, depending on what you're doing. And the E is exhale. So like physically exhale the way that we did it by breathing in and
A nice long exhale out.
a
It's
long
like,
exhale.
yeah, it's having a longer exhale than your inhale.
Okay.
And that kind of long, slow exhale is when you put that tension on the diaphragm and the vagus nerve gets stimulated, which um, puts you into that rest and repair state of really
Rest and
resetting your
repair
nervous
state.
system. Yeah.
So what's actually happening with the vagus nerve when you make a big exhalation like that?
So the vagus nerve is actually one of the biggest nerves in the entire body, and it goes from up in the neck area down to the base of your diaphragm. And um, if you think of like this dynamic tension in our bodies between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. So we have, I mean, these two parts are what are called the autonomic nervous system. So we have two big parts of our nervous system, one that is conscious that we can control. So here I am like consciously moving my fingers and talking to you. And then there's the autonomic part of our whole nervous system, such as controlling our respiration rate, our heart rate, our digestion. There's just thousands of microprocesses that are occurring on a daily basis. And if right now, while we're having this conversation, you hear a loud explosion or a gunshot, or a tiger comes into the room chasing you, you're going to get up automatically and dart or run, or you might freeze, or you might, cower underneath your desk. And this is something that is part of a very ancient part of our brain. They call that like the reptilian brain. It's something that we've carried on from the whole process of evolution of animal species on this planet. And so the vagus nerve is the part of this counterbalance of that rest, repair, calm state. It's like when we're in that deep kind of peaceful meditative state versus like the fight, flight, freeze, which is when the sympathetic gets fired up. And that's the vagus nerve's job, is to really balance these processes. And the vagus nerve is involved with like how chronic pain signals are processed in the body. It's really just a profoundly powerful part of our nervous system. And there's a lot of research in this whole area of working with our vagus nerve. There's a whole area of study called polyvagal theory. So we talk about that in our book as well. Yeah, we could definitely have a whole podcast just talking about the vagus nerve if we wanted
That's
to.
amazing.
Yeah.
So that exhalation is in a way a physical signal that you are safe, everything is okay, and it creates a physical response in a matter of 5 seconds of breathing in and making that exhale. That's fascinating.
Yeah, if you were to hook yourselves up to following your vital signs, you would see a marked shift in your heart rate. Your blood pressure would drop to a healthier state. Respiratory rate would drop, and just other kind of dynamic tensions that you could measure in the body would change. And like your heart rate variability, which is a sign of what they call coherence or of health, can be measured. And when you stimulate your vagus nerve, you enter that state of coherence as well. So exactly, we're letting our bodies know that we're safe by stimulating our vagus nerve. And it's very simple to do by just simply taking a nice long exhale out. We can do that. And some mindfulness techniques are all about just breathing and using our breath and awareness of our breath to bring us into that present moment state of calm and peace and safety.
That's so powerful. So that's the E for exhale. And then the E also stands for expansion. So guide me through this. So my item or thing that I was bringing my attention to was my Dunkin' Donuts coffee cup, right? The fact that we can bring this amazing beverage anywhere with us, not have it burn our hands, right? It doesn't spill out most of the time, like all these great things about coffee and the cup itself. So I was bringing my attention there. And then we did the exhale, and then the expansion piece of this. So you mentioned if you're a visual person, notice it visually expanding. So can you explain the expansion piece to me and the importance of that?
Well, I think there's different ways. It depends on like how an individual, it's very unique for I think everyone of how they experience this maybe sense of expansion. But for me, it's letting that experience just really like fill me up. So I'm not necessarily having my mug get bigger in my mind. I mean, you could do that. That might be kind of feel awkward for people, but it's it's like if I were to just close my eyes for a moment at the end of my exhale, and I just feel the tingling, or I cultivate this experience of the moment really filling me up,
Yes.
and I can literally feel the sensory experience of like almost like an energy expanding in my body. Sometimes it's like a sense of tingle or chills. Um,
Yes.
yeah. And like when I said visually, if you're a visual person, I mean, it could be, you could visualize maybe a light, or, uh, experience some type of visual vastness of like it just really getting big and filling you up. So I think what it does, on a kind of psychological model, is this idea of really expanding our sense of self and our identity. And that's actually one of the areas that we studied in our research studies. So we studied, conducted two large studies through UC Berkeley, Greater Good Science Center, at the height of the pandemic. So the studies commenced in June of 2020, when everyone was like sheltering in place. And then plus on top of all the stress of that, there was like a lot of political tension with the riots going on in June of that year. And people are really struggling really hard. A lot of depression, anxiety, a lot of loneliness with sheltering in place.
Yeah.
And so I was just explaining about how this idea of expansion of our identity is that one of our aspects of our studies was studying loneliness.
Mm.
And awe is a very interesting emotion, but when we experience the emotion of awe, we feel a sense of connection to, whether you want to use the word God or the universe or all of humanity or other creatures on the planet. That expansion is what gives us that sense of connectiveness to something greater than the self, the small self, or kind of smaller egoic identity. And so we're using this methodology to kind of literally give us that felt sense of interconnectedness or expansion of our identity.
And what did you find as a result of this study, especially when it comes to loneliness? What were some of the benefits that you found throughout this study?
Yeah, so we have, like in our book, we have like sort of deep dives into the results of our studies. But with regards to loneliness, so there's some loneliness scales that are out there, and we actually have the scale in our book. So if someone like was listening to this podcast and they want to have an experience of like, I'm curious, like where am I on a loneliness scale? Because loneliness has been thought of as being just as harmful to our physical health as smoking like a pack of cigarettes a day. Like
Wow.
people that are chronically lonely, and there's a lot of loneliness right now in the way our world is set up with, people like literally living their lives in very sheltered silos and not having a lot of social connection,
Yeah.
especially since the pandemic, and social media has kind of made that even more difficult for people. But yeah, so we studied this technique, and all we did was ask people to practice this moment of awe for three times a day. So once you kind of learn this technique, you can do it in about 15-20 seconds. So in less than a minute a day, we ask people to practice this technique 3 times a day. And so we measured this loneliness scale, and we saw like a 15% reduction in people's experience of loneliness. And this is in 300 primary care patients, by simply just practicing this 3 times a day. And we have, of course, a lot of stories that people have shared, because this was at the height of the pandemic. People saying like, "Yeah, I am. I'm home alone, but yet I'm starting to feel a sense of connection. I'm feeling myself, feeling part of this like greater story of all life on Earth. Um, yeah, I mean, it's like, I can't explain to you necessarily the mechanism of action of like, it's firing this particular nerve around the loneliness center of the brain. But what's really unique about this is just how these people were still physically alone, yet they didn't feel alone. And that's
Fascinating.
interesting because it's actually, loneliness is a mindset in many ways, if you think about it.
What's up, Be Better family? It's Brandon Eastman here. And as a thank you for tuning in to the Be Better broadcast, I want to give you a very special gift. For a limited time, you can get a free digital copy of my book titled Be Extraordinary, Your Guide to Self-Mastery. This book is packed with insights and actionable steps that will help you to unlock your fullest potential in the 5 key areas of your life. But that's not all. Along with the book, I also want to give you the audiobook version absolutely free. Imagine having the power to transform your life right at your fingertips and in your ears anytime, anywhere. Go grab your copy at bebetterindustries.com/book. You'll also find the link in the episode show notes. Go and grab your copy and join me in making a positive impact on the world. Now back to the show. And they practice this 3 times a day for how long?
So in terms of the initial study, we did measurements and asked them to practice this just for 3 weeks. So we found these result changes within a matter of 3 weeks. And in our research, we did daily diaries. So we had people complete daily questionnaires about how they were changing as a result during this time of the study. And then we also did some longitudinal measures as well.
So in less than a month, by following a process that is innately within us, that you don't have to pay for, that you just simply remember to use, people have reduced their loneliness or how they perceive loneliness by 15%.
Yep, exactly.
Are there longer studies for this? Like, have you done any for like 90 days or anything longer than that?
So we did do some measurements up to 6 months after, and those haven't been published yet, but
Okay.
a lot of the benefits continued for people as they continue to practice it. And what we do know actually from our original research is that, which I think is really interesting, and this ties into like how we think of this as a medical intervention, rather than just a mindfulness technique, we actually think of this as a medical tool, is that there was what's called a dose response. So the more people dose their moments of awe throughout the day, the more benefit they had in terms of decreases of depression, anxiety, chronic pain, and overall sense of well-being. Our depression and anxiety measures were really quite impressive. So we saw, for example, in the depression area, in the general population, which was about 300 participants in the study, we saw a 36% reduction in people's depression symptoms, which is really incredible. I mean, this is like kind of an equal efficacy of people taking pharmaceutical type agents. I'm not downplaying, because they are very important, that people have medication options for managing depression. And some depressions, they're so refractory, you have to be on medication to get better. But we did see a 36% reduction in the general population, 35% in the healthcare professionals. We actually had a whole arm of our study that just focused on healthcare professionals at the height of the pandemic that were on the front lines managing COVID, and they were super burnout and stressed out. Burnout, of course, in the world that you're in, and like part of the purpose of your podcast is helping people with their professional burnout. And so we actually focused one of our studies on the healthcare professional side. We zeroed in on burnout as one of our outcome measures as well.
Would you say that gratitude is a synonym for awe, or are they different in themselves?
Yeah, they are different. So I was going to sort of comment on this when you were talking about when you summarize the awe method. It doesn't have to be something that we're grateful for, that we're bringing our attention to. It can be, yes, we can use something we're grateful for, because gratitude in itself is a different positive emotion than the emotion of awe. Um, so we can use something that we are grateful for to focus our on, but it doesn't have to be something we're necessarily grateful for. It can be just opening our eyes right now and like looking out the window and just noticing maybe light patterns of the light coming through a tree can be a source of awe. If there's something that you're not picking up in your visual field, you can close your eyes and recall a moment from your childhood, maybe a sweet moment of your being with your grandparents or with your parents, or your children. Like those can all be an awe-inspiring experience. And when we even just close our eyes and we relive it in the moment right now, we can stimulate a moment of awe. So what's unique in terms of awe? So what we call awe is what's called a prosocial emotion. So
Pro-social emotion.
prosocial, yeah.
Okay.
And what that means sort of in the psychological world is that within awe are all these other positive emotions. So this is not from my personal research, but my colleagues, most of the research having been done at the UC Berkeley Greater Good Science Center. And if you go to their website, they have what's called a white paper, which is like it's like a summary paper of all the research that's been done up to a certain point in time, where they talk about the different aspects of what's known about the emotion of awe. And so within awe is the experience, for example, of, like we talked already about, connectedness. So they've studied like psychologically, sociologically, how people when we have awe moments, they feel more connected to others, to strangers. They are more politically open-minded. So like when you have awe in your life, you're more willing to hold like other divergent points of view. You can see like a bigger story, a bigger picture. Awe makes us more generous. So they've done studies where like people are more generous to strangers.
Wow.
They give bigger tips to people. Like when you have awe in your life, you're just a kinder, more generous person. You experience more empathy and compassion to people. And then of course, gratitude as well. Like you live in your life with a more grateful lens because you're seeing the beauty and the vastness and the incredible nature of everything on the planet. From like the bigger stuff to the smaller stuff. You begin to, when you practice this, you'll go on a walk with your dog down the street. And if you have the lens of seeing the world in awe, you'll be like, wow, I've never noticed this tree before, or this flower, or this building. And like how, being in awe of like the structures of buildings or the design, like all these things can be awe-inspiring. And so I think of it as like we're learning to see the world with childlike wonder, right? When you're with children, if you have a 4 or 5-year-old or a 3-year-old in your life, it seems like when they
Everything's
get,
interesting.
yeah, everything is amazing and interesting and stimulating. And you're just like, oh my God, this is so incredible. And they're making these interconnections between things in the world. Basically what we do through this experience of we're retraining our nervous systems so that we begin to live our lives with childlike wonder and to see the beauty all around us all the time. There's a quote I really love. I mean, we have some great quotes in our book, but this one is by Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, he was a contemporary of MLK. If you look at old pictures of MLK, like walking across the bridge, there's like a guy dressed up like a rabbi next to him. And this is Joshua Heschel. And he was kind of known as, there's a lot of awe in all of our spiritual traditions around the world, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, like they're all, a lot of Buddhism, Hindu, we're all talking about like experiencing the oneness, the vastness, the radical amazement of life. And so Rabbi Heschel says, our goal should be to live life in radical amazement. Get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal. Everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed. And of course, the word amaze that's the word awe,
Yeah.
just to be in awe.
Amaze. If you say it fast, it's not in there, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So how long have you personally been consciously following this method, and how often do you yourself use this method?
So I guess I say we stumbled upon it. We tell the story in our book. We kind of stumbled upon this practice back in 2019, and then did some pilot studies, and then our bigger studies in 2020. So I personally have been a practitioner of awe now, within this methodology since 2019.
Okay.
And I would say what happens for people, and we know this from our research and anecdotal stories from thousands of people who have gone through our studies, our programs that we've taught, um, is that eventually awe just happens spontaneously. Like I can use the awe method. Like I can rock myself through these 3 steps and I can experience a moment of awe on command, on demand. But really what happens is you just begin to live your life in awe. And awe bubbles up all the time. I have a lot of awe, for example, as a clinician, as a medical doctor. When I'm in the room with a patient, um, I often start my visits with a patient, like connecting on a moment of awe.
Mm,
I go out to the window and be like, look at that beautiful tree. Like, I'm just so in awe of that. Tell me about a moment of awe you've had recently.
wow.
With one thing I love about the emotion of awe is that it's contagious, right? When we talk about awe, when we share our awe with others, we inspire awe in them. And because it's such a positive emotion and it has these ripple effects, being a pro-social motion, it just spreads the goodness out in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those positive emotions are so much more powerful than a negative emotion, because negativity is contagious as well. But the positive effect of awe and gratitude and love, those truly touch the heart, right? And you feel it in a moment, even with a complete stranger, someone you're meeting for the first time. And I meet strangers every single day. I'm in sales, so I have
Mhm.
these conversations all the time. And it's always a much better time talking about things that someone loves, right? Something that they're interested in, something that will bring that positive emotion. Now, you mentioned chronic pain, and we've talked about loneliness, we've talked about depression, we've talked about these. I guess they are physical ailments, if we want to call them that, but they are also mental ailments. And we've talked about the benefits of using this method and the power of awe with that. Tell me about awe and chronic pain. So we've got people living their life with their knees hurt, their back hurts, they've used their body their whole life, maybe, or maybe they haven't, and they just experience pain throughout the day. How does mindfulness and awe affect chronic pain? Does it disappear? Does it just simply take the attention off of it? What does that look like from your experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, chronic pain is a really interesting process and what happens in the body. So like when someone, let's say, has an initial injury, that's what we call acute pain. But when the pain lingers on for months and months afterwards, that's what we call chronic pain. And often that acute injury can be healed up. The tissue can be fixed at that point in time, but yet they continue to experience pain.
Mm,
Um, I'm mindful about not lumping all chronic pain in the same boat, because there are so many different types of chronic pain, like from like having a back injury to like having true pathology where you have knee arthritis and your knees all gunked up because your joints falling apart,
hmm.
to, let's say, having neuropathy from diabetes and you have the burning in your feet. Like they're lumped together as chronic pain, but they have often different pathways. But
Got
basically
it.
what happens in our nervous system, and the way I think of it, is that we have our nervous system it's like a computer. I mean, it's like bunch of these switches and communication of information. And so in our spinal cord, we have synapses where the nerves connect to the other nerves that regulate pain. And we also have them in our brain as well. And so when we practice these different mindfulness techniques, we're able to slow down the processing of these pain signals, and in some ways almost block them from occurring for people. And the way when I teach, I actually run these 8-week chronic pain group programs at my clinic, and we use this awe method, and the curriculum behind it is really a foundational piece of like how we run people through the program. And the basic idea is to train ourselves through using these hacks in a way of understanding how our nervous system works to decrease our subjective experience of pain,
Mm,
plus decreases of the suffering. So a very simple mathematical equation that I explain to my patients around the suffering they get from their pain is that it's suffering equals pain times resistance. So the more we resist our pain, the more suffering we have from our pain. It's a very simple mathematical equation. So often we can't necessarily stop the pain because pain is just a sensation. It's like the burning, the tingling, the aching. But when we resist it, the more we resist it, the more suffering we have. And so
Mm.
we are, one, decreasing our resistance by living more in the moment, accepting things as they are. And then we are really decreasing our subjective experience of the sensations by bringing our attention to something else, but also decreasing the volume, I think, is a good way to think about it. We're turning that volume down of the
Yeah.
pain. Yeah,
It reminds me of that Tony Robbins quote, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so this 8 weeks that you're leading people through, what are people saying at the end of it? Are they saying, Dr. Mike, this helped me blank? What are they saying to you? What are the results you're seeing after 8 weeks, just 2 months of
Yeah.
this method and also other mindfulness techniques?
Well, it's really profound for people. And I think those that dive in deeper, and I would say in a way drink the Kool-Aid. And so it's not just that we're teaching them the Ah method, but I give people like homework. So for example, we know that when you bring your attention to art and music, whether if you play music or you do your own art, um, but just appreciating other art or appreciating music, all these things can be healing for our nervous systems and help us with managing our chronic pain. So it's very much like a holistic program. And then, yes, I see profound changes in people's lives. Like I just finished a group the last month, and
Cool.
one guy in particular, like this, like, big burly construction guy who you would never think would be doing mindfulness and getting into the Ah method, but he was in tears. And he
Wow.
actually painted a picture. I mean, I have this thing on my phone, and it's like the most beautiful thing. He painted a picture of our group sitting in a circle around a campfire, and the way he painted it was like there was like this energy field that connected everybody, and that was like this experience of awe that we were all sharing. And I teach them also what's called qigong, so it's like a
Yes.
simple like conscious movement, and we're like cultivating energy that through those movements, which can be very healing to our nervous systems. I mean, in many ways, like everything we're working here is on an energetic field of around consciousness and energy in our physical form of our body. And so he was able to capture that in this piece of art. And it was just like brought me to tears. It was like, oh my God. It's like I decreased this. He was like, had chronic anxiety, chronic pain, depression. And it's like this guy just lit up like a light bulb. It was like my life
Wow.
is back, and gave me a giant hug and was in tears. And so I just love this work I get to do with people. We actually we do some online courses for those that are listening if they want to, do a deeper dive with us. Every so often, Jake and I will teach courses online together, and then I lead retreats with my spouse Alana, and we're doing an all retreat in Mexico in November.
Wow.
Actually, yeah,
Amazing.
a deep dive into awe for those that want to go experience that.
And who goes to these retreats?
Um, I mean, it's everybody. Like we have, like already signed up. We have one person who's going actually as a psychologist, wanting to learn more, deeper dive. And she's bringing a cousin of hers on the retreat. We have like a husband and wife in their 70s that are going, that
Cool.
just like they love to go on mindfulness type yoga retreats. Someone else has signed up who just is super excited for we call it, experiencing the awe of Mexico, like all the amazing food. It's a beachfront resort. There's surf. It's an incredible place to go. So, yeah, it's really every age is attracted to this type of work. In our research studies, we had people as young as 19 years old in our research studies, actually.
When did meditation, mindfulness, these concepts become important to you? You mentioned you've been meditating and following these practices for over 3 decades, some of them. So this was before meditation was really a hot topic. Now you can search mindfulness and you've got a million articles that come up. But 30 years ago in the 90s, it was a very different story. How did you come across meditation and mindfulness?
Yeah. So what happened was, I suffered from a lot of anxiety when I was a kid, and in my early, late teens and 20s. So I wanted to be a doctor since I was like a little boy. I mean, as long as
Wow.
I can remember, I wanted to be a medical doctor. And um, as I continued in, through high school and then into college, the stakes just felt more intense, and I was like really hard on myself, and I wanted to, get straight A's all the time and get top scores and everything. And I had an experience of a panic attack when I took the medical school admissions test to get into med school the first time. I mean, like, it was like this one test. I knew I had to get a really high score so I could get into the school that I wanted to go to.
Hmm.
And I just, like, my mind was like, literally felt like it was hijacked. And I had this, like, the experience of, when I talk about the sympathetic nervous system, where like a tiger was chasing me. I mean, my mind was a tiger going after me. It's like, you're a failure. You can't do this. Like, you suck, like all these voices. And it just felt like I was hijacked. And I had literally ran out of the room crying. I was just such a wreck. And I
Wow.
was at a point where I was like, well, I either have to get on medications and to see a psychiatrist to get my mind under control, or a friend who I was my study buddy. She was like, I think you should go do this meditation retreat. And it was a form of Buddhist meditation called Vipassana. And I did this like 10-day retreat. And it just totally changed my life. Like, I had never felt such profound peace and presence. I actually, in some ways, it was the hardest 10 days of my life, because sometimes those thoughts amplified and they got worse. But with time and just learning to be with them, the power they had, they vaporized and kind of disappeared, with just sort of learning to just be with and witness. And I was able to experience the power of true deep healing power of mindfulness. And here I am, just in my early 50s now, and I continued to study over the years. Eventually got trained as a mindfulness teacher, and I led what's called a Sangha, or a meditation community. I've always been really fascinated around the intersection between like Eastern spirituality and like Judaism and Christianity, like kind of like how those two like intermingle, and just like the commonalities between them. So I consciously created an interfaith meditation group in my community. And so it was really neat to be like in the space where it was like, yeah, we're doing Buddhist like meditation and yoga, but we're also bringing in like stuff from scripture, and like had like the three major religions like all represented in our group. It was really special.
That's
So
beautiful, man.
yeah,
What a cool story of someone who was facing the pressures of life, and then this serendipitous moment of your friend says, "Hey, there's a retreat. You should go check it out." And a lot of people hear about these things that can help them, but 10 days, that's quite the commitment to go to a retreat, especially when this is a brand new topic to you. And you did it, and you went, and look at how your life was changed forever in many ways because of it. Look what you do now. You wrote this book with Jake, like all these amazing things that have come out of this. There's so much I want to ask you on mindfulness and meditation. We just don't have the time, but maybe in the future I'll have you back on to talk about it. But I want to talk about your book. So a year ago, you launched your book, The Power of Awe. And do you have a copy with you? You can flash across the screen.
I do. Yeah. Here's the
Okay.
cover.
There we
Yeah.
go. That's nice
Yeah.
cover art too. It's very nice.
Thank you
Very
very
peaceful
much.
cover
Yeah.
art.
And it really captures the idea of just how simple, a droplet of water and noticing the reflections can be a moment of awe.
Perfect example. And did
Yeah.
this come out of that study that you did where you said we need to share these findings? We need to tell everyone else in the world how to do this. Like, what prompted the power of awe?
Well, yeah, it was really based upon our success of our research, and the main the founder and director of the Greater Good Science Center, his name is Dacher Keltner, and we think of him as the granddaddy of awe research. He wrote the first paper in 2003, that proposed that awe should be studied as a unique scientific emotion, that it had a very important, realm in which positive emotion researchers needed to look at. And so his whole career has really been based upon studying the emotion of awe. And then we had connected. I shared our pilot data, and then we did our bigger studies at UC Berkeley, which have now been published in peer-reviewed journals. And he really encouraged us to write the book. Like, there's something really important here. He actually told us, he said, when we shared, this work, he's like, this is the future of mindfulness. To quote him, this is so big because as we've talked about already, just in our busy world with so many distractions, people don't have the time to go on a 10-day meditation retreat, let alone do they have maybe even 10 minutes a day to sit and practice. There's a lot of barriers really for what I would call sustainable mindfulness practice that really works for people in their lives. And what I love about the AH method is that it can be done anywhere. You can be in line at the airport going through the TSA line where people are super stressed out and anxious often. And like literally just like look around and be like, wow, I'm in awe. Like there's a lot to be in awe of. Be in awe of connecting with strangers, looking at strangers, in awe of design of architecture. I mean, often airports are very beautiful, awe-inspiring places. The technology is all around us, whatever. I mean, everything can be a source of awe. And so we were really encouraged to write the book because this was such a powerful technique. Also wanted to share about just what's unique about the AH method is that not only can be done anytime and any place, but there's a reward from it. And I don't know, Brandon, if you've tried doing a meditation practice yourself before, but a lot of people have tried it and then they give up and they have a hard time and then they kind of beat themselves up.
That was me.
Okay.
Transcendental meditation where you sit for, I'm sure you're familiar, where you have a mantra you repeat over and over for 20 minutes twice a day. And, they say to do one in the afternoon and then also to do it in the morning or at night, and twice a day is the key. But 40 minutes a day to sit and repeat this mantra, I would just be thinking throughout the meditation, there's things I need to do, right? I'm busy. How can I do this? My wife's out there. She's doing things. I want to be out there with her. But this is a very realistic way to practice mindfulness. And really what we're doing is by following this AH method, we're shifting our focus from maybe a place of frustration waiting in the airport line to a place of awe, looking at the architecture, the artwork that may be on the walls, the fact that airplanes exist, like
right.
So many different things that we can focus on. And this is like a reminder to shift our focus.
Yeah. And so what my point is that there's a reward when we experience the AH method. Like it's practical, it can be done anytime and any place. And then you do it for 15, 20 seconds and you feel good. And that's why this is such a powerful practice, because to build a habit, to make something a part of your life, rather than it just being a temporary state, but to make it a trait as who you are as a person, there has to be inherently within that a reward that feels good, that you want to keep doing this practice. And so the AH method takes you to that state of feeling really good. It's a healing state to be in. It's a state of safety. It's a state of peace, a state of connection. It's a state of feeling gratitude. Like I said, it's a pro-social emotion. So when we experience that, it has like all these downstream positive ripple effects. And plus it's contagious in a good way. Like when we share our awe with others, we inspire awe in them. And when we hear other people's share of awe, like they inspire us. It's a beautiful reciprocal emotion that we really all can benefit from.
Yeah. Imagine if we all followed this method. Imagine if everyone knew of its existence and set out for 3 weeks, give it a shot, even start 1 week, right? Do this for a week. And if you don't find a positive result in the way that you feel, stop doing it, right? It's 3 steps. It takes you, once you get used to it, like you said, 15, 20 seconds to do. Now, I want people to pick up a copy of your book. So it's The Power of Awe. You can find it on thepowerofawe.com, and you can also find it on Amazon, right?
Yeah, of course. It's we were published by Hachette. They're one of the, I think, second largest publisher in the world. So it's available on audiobook. It's of course like an ebook version. It's in every version possible. Get it online from Amazon, but of course, great to support your local bookstore and have them order it for you as well. And then we have, like I said, we have online classes we're teaching. We have live retreat that we're doing in Mexico. later this year, and plan to keep doing retreats around the world on an annual basis. And if they keep growing, we'll do more of them. Just like
Awesome.
help people share the awe with everyone. Yeah, and I love being in touch with people. We have a really robust private Facebook group if someone is interested. I mean, we have like our general Facebook page, but we have like a group that people are sharing their awe, that are really kind of big awe people. And, we welcome people to join it. You can ask to request to join the group. And I love hearing from people. You can email me at michael@thepowerofawe.com. And if you need any support, have any comments, feedback, I love hearing from people as well.
Amazing. You mentioned before the show that there's an excerpt of your book that you wanted to read that explains an idea of the bigger picture of awe. Would you mind taking a minute or so and giving us that excerpt?
Yeah, I'd love to read, apart from our epilogue, kind of the closing part of The Power of Awe. So we've been talking, Brandon, a lot today about like how awe is an emotion that helps us personally, but we really have a call to action here around how awe can transform the world around us. So
Wow.
I would love to read a few paragraphs from the book.
Please do.
So the awe method is more than a self-help technique, and the implications of awe go well beyond personal transformation. Awe touches everything, and perhaps most telling is the effect it has on others. We're wired to attune to others' behaviors and moods. Our nervous system senses the emotions of those around us. Just as being the recipient of a warm smile can lighten our mood, when we're in awe, those around us feel it too. Awe is contagious, and so practicing the awe method is one not so small way we can contribute to the world. In this book, we've covered how the awe method is grounded in science, and that a whole body of science supports that awe changes lives. So we have a big, simple crash ending to the power behind the simple practice of the awe method. If practiced frequently enough by enough people, a critical mass as it were, everyone would experience a significant heightened shift in consciousness. Awe changes us, and when we share our awe, we change the world. How can we be in awe of someone and physically or emotionally harm them? How can we be in awe of the natural world and destroy it? How can we be in awe of life itself and not live as if every day were a miracle? In awe, the tone of every conversation, from personal to political, shifts from having an agenda to being open and curious. Our conversations impact how we raise our kids, how we help our aging parents, how we treat our spouse, how we participate in community, how we mentor or supervise people, how we govern a city, and how we lead a nation. We can think of no downside to practicing the awe method, because awe is the light, the appreciation of nature and different cultures, the curious and open mind, the generous and giving soul. These days, we need awe more than ever. So awe awaits you and surrounds you in the ordinary moments of your life. Like the view of the stars that fill the night sky, awe is free and always available. All you need to do is pay attention to what you value, appreciate, and find amazing. Wait, and then exhale and expand and into the unlimited timelessness of awe.
Woo! Awesome. What a beautiful excerpt.
Thank you.
And the concept, it's so true. And listen, there's a lot of frameworks that we hear on this show, and they're all valuable in their own way. And this is one of the more recent ones where I'm thinking I'm going to follow this and I'm going to commit to this for a minimum of the 3 weeks. I'm really going to put my time and focus into this because it doesn't take that long. It's very attainable. It's very realistic. And I'm curious as to how I'll feel when I do it. So thank you for sharing this, for sharing the awe method. Thank you for writing this book. Thanks for doing the work you do, because, as a doctor, you could just be a doctor and you could do that in your local community, but you have your retreats and you wrote this book and you do so many different things that wouldn't have existed, I'm sure, if you didn't experience mindfulness and meditation and the benefits for yourself. So Dr. Mike, this has been fantastic. There's links in the description, everyone, to go check out Dr. Mike. Go grab a copy of his and Jake Eagle's book. And thank you for being on the show. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you so much. It's really just been a wonderful hour together with you. And I'm just so grateful to be here. And thank you to your listeners for all your support.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I wish you all well. Thank you.
Guys, be sure to go to the description, grab a copy of Dr. Mike's book, The Power of Awe. You can find it many places. I'll have all those directories down below. And if the retreats sound good to you, if the online courses sound good to you, whatever resonated with you, the information below will guide you to what it is you need to know. This has been a profound conversation about the simplicity of this technique when it comes to mindfulness. And if you're like me and you've dabbled in the idea of meditation, but it just didn't work out for you, then this is something that is realistic and attainable. And I highly invite you to try this for yourself and see how it makes you feel when you invite the power of awe into your life. Links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the Be Better broadcast. Share this show if it helped with even anything today, even one strategy or idea or a different way of thinking. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.